Hello, my friends. Welcome to Monday, and welcome to the start of a brand new week. Welcome to my car in the car with Star, brought to you as always by Ash Gregoire, Chamin and Nissan, 4299 Auto Route 440 West Laval. Little Bear Pet Store online, littlebearonline.com. Use the promo code INTHECAR10, and of course, K-Stop Gas Bar and Depanneur. We told you all about it yesterday. Premium fuel at discount prices and the best snack game in the snack game business. I wouldn't send you anywhere that I personally don't shop myself. Good morning. Happy to be here. I hope you enjoyed your weekend. Man, what a fun weekend of sports, no doubt, from everything from the World Cup kicking off with Qatar and Ecuador to the Grey Cup and the end of a dynasty. The Winnipeg Blue Bombers looking for the three-peat come up on the wrong side of a 24-23 scoreline as the Toronto Argonauts become champs for the first time in 5 years. Happy to see former Montreal Alouette linebacker Enoch Mwamba play a hell of a game and ultimately be named the CFL's MVP. But we got a lot to get to before we get into football. There's the San Francisco 49ers as they get busy to take on the Arizona Cardinals live from Azteca Stadium in Mexico City. So we got that. We got some best bets ahead of that game. But, of course, it's all about I can't believe what is going on with the Montreal Canadiens in the aftermath of Marc Bergevin's tenure coming to an end. And boy, oh boy, the stories are starting to come out. I love this. I've got a lot of time for this. And as a matter of fact, I actually feel slightly vindicated with some of the things I've told you over the past couple of years as it's come to light, getting to know Marc Bergevin just a little bit more. But holy shnikes, Pierre Gervais, the former Montreal Canadiens equipment manager. I mean, this guy has been on the job for over 20 years. He's been with Team Canada. He's won gold medals. He's helped be the equipment manager on Stanley Cup winning Montreal Canadiens teams. I mean, this guy has been around the bend. This man knows of what he speaks. This guy has seen players come and go in this market for almost 30 years. Pierre Gervais, when he has anecdotes, you stand up and you pay attention. And boy, oh boy, oh boy, did he carve up some guys inside the Montreal Canadiens organization. And let me tell you, oh baby, do I have time for this. So let's get going. Pierre Gervais got a new book out. So this guy retired, obviously, and sailing off into the sunset. And Matthias Brunet, who's a longtime journalist covering the Montreal Canadiens in this market forever, he went up to Pierre Gervais and said, listen, the day you decide to hang it up and call it a career, you're going to write a book. And I want to be a collaborator on that. Well, fast forward to November of 2022, my friends, and we are here, la cœur du vestiaire, the heart of the room, as Pierre Gervais, the former Montreal Canadiens equipment manager, just goes in hard on Dominic Ducharme, goes after Marc Bergevin, talks about Carey Price, talks about the relationship between PK Subban and Max Pacioretty, more specifically, what went wrong? Why wasn't PK welcomed with open arms? I think we have an idea of why that was, but a little clearer idea from a guy who lived that life, who was there day in and day out. So right off the hop, he talks about Dominic Ducharme, and this one to me was a gimme putt in terms of predictability when he talked about how Dominic Ducharme in Pierre Gervais' book, he could not win the respect of anybody. The players looked at Dominic Ducharme like, what is this guy talking about? It reminds me of a time that Max Pacioretty, who I used to play golf with, told me when Michel Therrien was brought into the organization that they looked around and like they didn't know too many people that really respected anything that Michel Therrien had to say. It'd be like a teacher that annoys you, a teacher that you just didn't learn anything from. It was in one ear, out the other. So it's been pretty consistent inside the Montreal Canadiens organization when it comes to coaches and how those coaches relate to players on the ice. You know what that tells me? It tells me that the organization forever and a day prioritized politics over wins. The players complained all the time that they practice way too much. Now, this, again, a criticism that may be a touch unfair because this was during the pandemic. This was the all-Canadian division, so it's not like you had ample time to move around to do things that you would otherwise do in a traditional season. So right away, the players didn't relate to Dominic Ducharme. They certainly didn't respect Dominic Ducharme when he had instructions. And apparently this was not an organized team whatsoever. A lot of the times, and we speak about this often, players want a clear channel of communication. Where do I stand in good and bad times? And this was not an area of strength by Dominic Ducharme, according to Pierre Gervais in his book that is coming out soon, saying players learned hours before puck drop, whether they were playing or not. Cedric Paquette said he knew he would not face Chicago when he arrived in the dressing room in Chicago because one of his buddies in Montreal told him via text message. Text message. You're a player on the Canadiens. You're finding out you're not playing. You're finding out via one of your friends via text message. He doesn't know where it came out. He went into the locker room and saw that his friend wasn't making anything up. His uniform wasn't even there, wasn't even in the stall. So at the end, when we talk about whether or not coaches have the room, have coaches lost the room, if players turn these guys out, one of the anecdotes Pierre Gervais talks about in relation to Dominic Ducharme was, whenever I hear people talk about, well, he lost the room, he didn't lose. Ducharme never lost the room because Ducharme never had the room to begin with. Luke Richardson was the guy. Luke Richardson was the man that the players respected. Luke Richardson was the guy that they looked to for advice. Luke Richardson was the assistant that the players turned to in tough times. The answer was never Dominic Ducharme in any of those hypotheticals. Again, it reinforces my point. Priority over politics over hockey wins. What an absolute disaster this was. What an absolute disaster. And this ultimately falls on the lap of Marc Bergevin. Nobody else, not Jeff Molson, not his partners, not you, the fan, not me, the guy in the media. This falls on nobody other than Marc Bergevin, who is an absolute egomaniac, out of control. You knew this. I knew this. I told you about this on the regular. So much so that a lot of guys, like, what version of Marc Bergevin was showing up to the office? Pierre Gervais, again, excerpts from Pierre Gervais' book, The Heart of the Room, as the longtime Canadiens equipment manager just shreds Marc Bergevin, talking about how he was good at reading the waiver wire. He was good at making moves, but you never knew what mood Marc Bergevin would show up to work in, saying he could arrive in the morning and you'd wonder if this guy just experienced a catastrophe in his family. You would see him shouting, screaming at players like back in the day when he was playing. You can hear him screaming for the other end of the rink. You can hear him screaming for the other end of the building. He would slam the door and would knock the hinges off. Then the next day he would show up to work with a big smile. Pierre Gervais saying, that was Marc Bergevin. Imagine working in an environment like that. Imagine working in an environment where you're stepping on glass. You got a tippy toe everywhere because everything's a potential landmine set to go off and blow you to smithereens. And the next day the landmines are gone, and you can walk through and you can skip through like it's a meadow filled with daisies. I mean, that has got to be incredibly frustrating, not knowing what you're going into every single day. And look, work with challenges is fun. You want to be kept on your toes, but not like this. This is completely different. Again, Pierre Gervais, talking about Marc Bergevin's time as general manager, saying that he did a lot of good things, like signing Nick Suzuki as an example. How awesome is that, watching Nick Suzuki explode? This guy's a master in the shootout and an unbelievable playmaker as the Montreal Canadiens are getting back to work tomorrow against Buffalo, fresh off what was one of the most exciting W's of the season, a 5-4 come-from-behind win over Philadelphia in front of their fans on Saturday night. Talked about Marc Bergevin and his area of strength. You know what would have been better for Marc Bergevin? And we talked about this. We talked about it on the TSN 690 morning show. We talked about it right here in the car with Star. That Marc Bergevin was too green, got too much, too fast, too soon. Pierre Gervais backs this up, saying, listen, he did a lot of good things, but he did a lot of bad things too, did a lot of damage. Pierre Gervais' contention, Marc Bergevin should have served as an assistant general manager before being given the keys to the kingdom, saying, listen, we can't take away Bergevin's flair for the dramatic, his obvious deep knowledge of the game, but also that the Canadiens needed a mentor. They needed someone to mentor Marc Bergevin, how to manage staff, how to manage budgets, how to talk to people, how to manage his fame and all that other stuff. And listen, I could tell you, Marc Bergevin was a member at the Kanawaki Golf Club, where I play golf, where I've been a proud member for 8 years now. And, I would see Marc Bergevin at the club on the regular. We didn't really, we spoke a couple of times. I was introduced to him. He kind of knew who I was. And that was it. He took a shot at the guy that used to work at 10 o'clock right after my show, which was very fun. So we had that going. But other than that, I got to tell you, anytime you ran into Marc Bergevin, he wasn't the nicest guy, but again, like, his job is so stressful. I don't mean to knock him. I don't mean for that to be a criticism. that he wasn't a friendly, ha, 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 hey, how are you kind of guy. He only played with one other person. He never mixed socially, never mixed socially in golf either. It's not like he'd be on the deck having a drink on some idle day in July after the draft and all his work had been done. It's not like, he was part of the boys going around. He rarely had a smile, rarely had anything to say. But I always chalk that up to being the general manager of the Montreal Canadiens. Honestly, I do. How stressful it is. Everybody's an expert. I mean, look at me. All I do is talk about and second guess moves the Canadiens make, right? And then you're met with that in person all the time. So I don't really, mean that as a knock on Marc Bergevin, but it seems very consistent with my experience and then Pierre Gervais' experience here. And talked about how Marc Bergevin had given basically Dominic Ducharme carte blanche to do whatever he wanted to do when it came to hiring staff, whether it was a goaltender coach or a fitness guy. Whereas in the past, Marc Bergevin would always have his nose in everything. Remember, I told you this before, right? Like when it came to the anthem singer, Marc Bergevin's first few years at the helm of the Montreal Canadiens as their GM, he'd be like, "Who's singing the anthem tonight?" And then somebody would tell him it's that guy, and be like, "No, he's not singing the anthem today." And it'd be like just all over the place, just an absolute control freak. But he's the boss, he's the man, right? So you want to have control of everything. But it was weird that it changed, which led me to believe that maybe Marc Bergevin knew that his time was coming to an end, and that he knew at the time that, I've done everything I've tried to do. Ownership and the partnership that own the Montreal Canadiens don't really see a future between us and them. Therefore, it's a mail-in and Friday mode for Marc Bergevin, right? But all of this to say, look, it's not a coincidence. He hasn't landed on his feet as a general manager, and I believe Pierre Gervais that the Montreal Canadiens maybe made a mistake by giving the guy the keys to the kingdom too fast, too soon. That maybe a mentorship role, being an assistant general manager to a veteran guy that he can learn from, maybe would have made him a better general manager. So it's wild. It's wild to see how the players were so fed up of Marc Bergevin screaming. They were fed up of his fanboyism. The players were fed up with how he dressed. They didn't like that he took a lot of attention with his ridiculous, colorful suits. And ultimately, he ran too hot and ran too cold, and players rarely knew kind of where they stood. He was hard to follow, and that is a problem. That is a problem. That I do believe that's contagious. That type of disorganization, that lack of trust, that lack of identity, who you are, who's really running the ship, and is our captain truly credible? These guys figure this stuff out. It's no different than you or I in the corporate world, whether I'm in media or whether you're a CPA. It doesn't matter. Who's your leader, and do you buy what they're selling? And then ultimately, almost 10 years on the job, the Canadian players were able to sniff this out. Said, this is not the guy. This is not the guy to get this team to the promised land. And that's exactly what happened. Pierre Gervais, I want to read this book from cover to cover, man. This is some juicy stuff. Also, Pierre Gervais, the former Canadiens equipment manager, who's got a new book out, giving details about Marc Bergevin, Dominic Ducharme, who he says never had any credibility, never had any respect. The room was never his because Dominic Ducharme never had the room. How did that continue for as long as it did? That's why Ken Hughes had to come in. Ken Hughes didn't want to fire Dominic Ducharme, but he saw how bad it was. He saw how poisonous the environment, the atmosphere around the Montreal Canadiens had become. So it was done. Cut the head off the snake and let's start fresh. And that's why I think, you see this regime, you see Hughes, you see Gordon. It's a breath of fresh air. It's a breath of fresh air because they're doing things in Montreal with this team that other markets do, but Montreal hadn't been able to do because they've been handcuffed for a variety of reasons. Let's not get into that. But now I'm left with the impression the team has reorganized their priorities. The team is more organized. The team is better at communication. The team has looked at just getting the best people responsible for the job. I mean, how do you go from Dominic Ducharme, who was stifling, guys would look at him and say, I don't believe this guy. This guy's a clown. Now to Martin St. Louis, where these guys want to skate through a brick wall for him. I mean, what an absolute, it's not, a 180 is a disservice to where the team was to where they are now. It's phenomenal. It's absolutely phenomenal. And what a stroke. What an unbelievable situational timing it all was for the Canadiens to fire Dominic Ducharme after they, remember this, they come out of the bye week. They're getting their butts handed to them every night. They go on a bye week. They come out of that bye week, get drubbed 7-1 at the hands of the Devils. Boom, he's gone, done. And the rest, my friends, is history. Cole Caulfield, in Pierre Gervais' books, is Cole Caulfield went to the rink and found out half an hour. It's oh, I'm not playing tonight. What? I didn't know it. This is Cole Caulfield. Look who Cole Caulfield is now. 11 goals, on pace for a 50-goal season. Nick Suzuki on pace for a 50-goal season. And look how they were run last year. Heaven, God, I'm flummoxed. I'm at a loss for words. That it went on for that long, and so many people who've made their livings in hockey, their careers, their names in hockey, just never saw it. They never saw it. Anyways, I'm glad it's over. Boy, oh boy, am I glad it's over. This market, man, never deserved that. Not for a second. Pierre Gervais also talks about P.K. Subban and Max Pacioretty. This is something I think most of us knew. Those two guys just never got along, ever. And Pierre Gervais talks about P.K. Subban, saying he was just different. Just a different guy. P.K., according to Pierre Gervais, always had to be seen. He said he could change the music in the room without asking. The guys are listening to country music. It's chill. It's quiet. PK would do what PK wanted to do, and change it up entirely, right? He dressed eccentrically. We knew that about PK Subban. It wasn't his dress or his tastes in music, says Pierre Gervais. That was the problem. The problem, according to Pierre Gervais, when it comes to PK Subban, he was an attention guy. All the attention, all eyes on me, 24/7, 365. And according to Pierre Gervais, in the long run, it tired guys out. I get it. And as much as I like PK Subban, I'm still a PK Subban fan. He was a highly entertaining player. I always talked about PK and classified him as a 1% player. This guy wanted to be in pressure-packed situations, and more often than not, the guy delivered. And in order to play that way, I think, on the ice, in order to be that character, that cocky, arrogant, I'm going to win, and then I'm going to shove it down your throat, you got to be that guy sometimes off the ice too. And I didn't really have a problem with it, though I can understand in hockey culture being in enough rooms in my lifetime, never at a high level, obviously, but being around locker rooms and playing sports my entire life, just like you, I can see how one personality that is over the top can be tiring, traveling 82 games year after year. I understand that. I really do. I get it. Is it a reason for me to get rid of PK Subban and trade him? I can't speak to how hard the organization tried to get PK Subban to be more of a team guy, maybe to, instead of just going up and changing the Hank Williams, maybe say, hey, Shea or Carey or anybody else, let's change this up, boys. It's getting a bit stale, right? Like, there are ways to go about your business when you're playing a team game that you just don't have to walk in and be this asshole, right? And I think Pierre Gervais is, in a nice way, saying PK was a bit of an asshole. But listen, the Canadiens won with PK Subban. The guys won with him. So Pierre Gervais, a funny line in his book, La Cœur du Vestiaire, that's coming out, as he relays his time over 20 years with the Montreal Canadiens. He said jokingly about PK Subban, this is a good line, if you want to punish PK, says Pierre Gervais, take him out into the woods without a camera and without a mirror. After one day, he's going to freak out, that's for sure. So there you go. That's Pierre Gervais' observations about PK Subban. Again, nothing that we're really surprised about. And ultimately, it comes down to Max Pacioretty and PK Subban. They just never, ever were together. It just didn't click. And they often argued with each other. And with other players, it was okay. But everyone knew the kind of individual that PK Subban was. Nobody on the team was more important than PK. He didn't get a lot of respect from the guys. And Gervais says he would look around the room saying, who's friends with PK? Who's friends with this guy? And he says it was hard to find guys that were friendly with PK Subban. So, that's the decision the Montreal Canadiens ultimately made. Pacioretty's gone now. He's out in Carolina, and PK Subban is out of the league. PK Subban is now an analyst with ESPN. So it's amazing to see what history has told us in the aftermath of both of those guys and their time in Montreal and where they are today. Gervais also talked glowingly about Carey Price and what a generous, kind, easy guy Carey Price was. And ultimately, again, something that we kind of knew in the time of Carey Price's career here with the Canadiens, that he was a simple guy, loved his outdoor lifestyle and everything that came with that kind of quiet pace of life. And he was, comme on dit à Québec, un vrai. Carey Price, according to Pierre Gervais, was a real one. But man, the absolute takeaway for me is what an absolute disaster Marc Bergevin was to work for and to work underneath. And certainly in the last few years, I would have had to imagine that was not an easy environment to work in. Listen, I've got a couple of friends that worked in that environment. I think after this, I might reach out via text and see what's what and everything else, because at one point, I think Pierre Gervais is telling Chantal Machabée, who's now the VP of comms for the Montreal Canadiens, that he was writing this book and he's got all these anecdotes, and like she was aghast. She couldn't believe what Pierre Gervais was telling her about his observations and everything else. And Dominic Ducharme didn't appreciate what Pierre Gervais had written about him in the book, and that Gervais told Ducharme, said, listen, I'm just telling you what I saw, brother. It is what it is. So I've got no reason to think that Pierre Gervais has some sort of agenda, some sort of axe to grind. This is not Stéphane Wade, who was fired between periods, who's giving me bogus information, making me look like a clown out here in the summer. But anyways, this is Pierre Gervais. This guy's a Hall of Famer. This guy has the utmost respect in the hockey world, and he retired. It's not like the Canadiens pushed him out, even though he didn't want to, right? So I don't think there is a lot here that spells agenda, red flag. A lot of this is with stuff that I had talked about in this space here with you guys, and certainly things that had come out. I mean, Marc Bergevin was the GM here for almost 10 years, right? So yeah, this to me is must read. Like ever since I was a little kid, and whether it was Rock'em Sock'em Hockey or the Legends of Hockey VHS cassettes I got over the holidays one time, I love the backstories. I love knowing, what's going on behind the scenes, who's friends with who doesn't like who, all this type of drama outside of the game. I've got a lot of time for you guys. So yeah, we got lots of comments coming in today. Thanks as always for tuning in to the pod today. We certainly appreciate it. Don't forget to get all your pets needs at littlebearonline.com. Promo code in the car 10. Their Black Friday Madness extravaganza is underway right now. And don't forget, they also ship. So it's like -2 degrees right now. Feels like -9. I don't blame you if you don't want to go outside today. Cool. littlebearonline.com. Promo code in the car 10. Get your pets food, get your pets treats, toys delivered right to you. Thank you, everybody, for all the comments today. The irony about players not liking how he dressed happened to Bergie. Caulfield better be careful. He's a snappy dresser as well. I also think it was thanks for the comment. I also think that Marc Bergevin is the boss man, dressing for attention. I think is a little different than Cole Caulfield, where guys coming in the room and you got a snazzy outfit. They're going to bust balls. They're going to have fun. They're going to, do all the stuff that guys in a room do. I think it's different than an older guy who's 20, 25 years older than your youngest player on the team, dressing, in a bright red suit. And guys, when he leaves the room, are like, look at this clown. What's he wearing, right? That's how I think. Anyways, Chris Codner, what up, Chris? St. Louis, a breath of fresh air compared to Ducharme. There's an understatement of the year. Friend to the show, Rick Springhetti, of course, who I met at the Verdun Auditorium covering the juniors, who's been a scout for a long time. I can't say I'm surprised about Ducharme. You can tell he's uncomfortable speaking in public. Communication is the most important thing with hockey. I agree. It's one thing like dealing with Q&A with the members of the media. Fine. I speak for a living. I'm not comfortable speaking in front of an audience. Like put a microphone, go on stage and talk? No. I don't want to do that if I don't have to. Put me in a studio with a microphone. That's my comfort zone. But that was the surprising part. Fine, you don't want to speak publicly or it sucks to speak publicly. Dude, a dressing room, talking to players is your life. It's been your life for the majority of your life, wouldn't you think? So that part was weird to me. And players at this level, they can sniff out the fakes. They can sniff out when a guy walks in the room, his body language, his tone of voice, the words he uses. They can tell a guy who's credible and you believe him versus someone like Dominic Ducharme, for example. When guys like Price, Perry, and Weber give Ducharme Absolutely. Flowers have the. I wouldn't listen to. I wouldn't listen to. Ducharme was just a veterans coach. I no, no. That is not true. That is not true. Lots of veterans. No. You know what happens with a veteran team and a coach like Dominic Ducharme? The veterans coach the team. Remember, Dominic Ducharme had COVID-19 in Vegas, and the Canadiens still won games. Remember that. Why is that? Because Carey Price had like a .930 save percentage, and they were playing for Shea Weber because Shea Weber's career was over. I'm going to give the players credit before I do anything else in that regard. That's just my perspective. You have yours. I appreciate your comments, certainly. And lots of comments coming in. Thank you. So many comments today. Jocelyn Philippe. Hey, Sean. That's why hockey will always lack for support in North American sports. There are guys like PK and other sports. Call it for what it is. Plain downright racism. Listen, I mean, that's your comment. I'm not gonna take the bait and go in on the racism angle. I just think hockey is just very conservative, and hockey is the ultimate team sport. And I'm not saying football or baseball or basketball aren't ultimate team sports. It just seems like the players have decided that team camaraderie, team togetherness is the be-all, end-all to team success, right? Look what happened in Boston with the whole nonsense when they signed that stupid racist player there, the bully. I forget his name. Anyways, Patrice Bergeron, this guy, hey, Brad Marchand, this guy's not coming anywhere near me, man. This guy's not coming anywhere near our room. To me, that's what I'm talking about here. Like, the protection of the room is everything, and that culture is everything. So, you know, I always found it weird, you know, that PK Subban, with his unique perspective, PK, the NHL needs PK. The NHL, if it wants to get to the next level, if it wants to evolve, it needs PK Subban. It needs players and personalities like PK Subban if this sport is ever going to get out of the niche category, right? I hope it happens. I'd like to see it happen. Personalities are fun. Hockey players, I'm telling you, some of you guys have met players, right? Or you know people that have hung out with these people when the cameras are down and the microphones are off. These are very funny people. These are cool, young. They've got money. They know how to have a good time. These are very, very fun people. But, you know, hockey is what it is, right? It's how they've been taught your entire life. It's going to be very difficult to get out from under that, right? Like, and look at the biggest stars in the game. What is it? Sidney Crosby, Connor McDavid. You know, what are we talking about here? Like, we're not talking about the who's who of a personality. Like, none of these guys are going to be hosting SNL anytime soon, right? But that's hockey, baby. You know, you score a hat trick, score 3 goals, pick up 2 assists. Man, my stick was great tonight. Oh, my teammates were unbelievable. Oh, the fans. Oh, the ice texture. Oh, the water was so cold in my Gatorade bottle. Oh, it was so good. Everybody gets credit but you. Everybody gets credit. Everybody. Thanks to my parents for making love, and I'm born, 22 years ago. It's great. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, very rarely do you hear a player talk about, man, my game was good today. My teammates really set me up. My shot was precise. It was heavy. It was exactly where they never say that stuff. They never say that. That's okay, though. That's okay. I like hockey for what it is, baby. Thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back later this week. Don't forget, like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. And every Sunday at 10 o'clock, we'll be back with our NFL best bets. We did well yesterday. Hopefully you tailed. So every Sunday at 10 o'clock, we'll be here live on this channel, right wherever you're watching, whether it's Facebook or YouTube. We'll be here Sunday live at 10 a.m. For a full dissection of NFL Week 12. You're looking for some action tonight? The Monday Nighter has San Francisco and Arizona live from Estadio Azteca in Mexico City. I like this game to stay under the posted total of 48. It's going to be an interesting game. I think there's some value in James Conner. Anytime touchdown, you're getting close to 2.5 to 1. Brandon Ayuk over 55.5 receiving yards. So a couple of player prop bets and a game total that I think stays under 43 with San Francisco and Arizona tonight at 8:15. You can watch it and listen to it on TSN 690. Okay, everybody, thank you. Don't forget, like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. And boy, oh boy, I'm so glad the Montreal Canadiens have turned the page. I'm so glad the Montreal Canes have turned the page. Better days, sunny days ahead, my friends.